Today's show is brought to you by KegConnection.com. Check out the redesigned KegConnection.com and check out the brand new Brewers Club Rewards program. That's right, earn points with every purchase and get discounts and deals on future orders. Keg Connection also launched a brand new financing program so you don't have to wait to order the gear you want today. Go to KegConnection.com and use the promo code HHH to receive 5% off your order.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question that you'd like discussed on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call them in by dialing 325-305-6107 and leave your message after the beep. I am your host, Joshua Stubing, and today I'm joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, James Carlson, and the President and Commander-in-Chief of Keg Washing at kegconnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Oh, glad to be here.
Oh, Todd.
You know what? I actually did wash kegs this week and last week. I've been training people on it.
I know. So. I posted video of you doing it, and people kind of did laugh. I don't think you saw the video. Did your daughter or your wife tell you about that video?
No.
Oh, okay, good. That's probably for the better.
I didn't see that. Where was that posted on?
It was on the Instagram. You really didn't see
Really?
it? Oh, yeah.
All you got to do is just walk out in the back, and you can see me washing kegs. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I posted it to. Oh, you know what, James? I might have posted. Oh, here it is. Because, audio listeners, if you just go to our Instagram, but there's Todd right there.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, yeah. I think I captioned it like watching Todd, teach other people how to do this is my favorite thing ever. Like, I have borderline PTSD, not to make light of serious things, listeners, but I have Todd washing kegs, as he can attest to. And James, you've washed kegs, so I'm preaching to the choir. It's not fun. It's not fun washing your own kegs, much less washing kegs that came sourced from wherever. Most of the time, they're not clean at all. They've got syrup in it. Some of them had spiders in them. I was convinced I've caught what is like old pirate diseases, like scurvy, or I don't know. I don't know what you can catch. Ebola. I got everything. I just got immunizations just to make sure. We are again live wherever you're listening and whenever you're listening through the powers of the internet. I've brought these guys in through video. You can watch us at YouTube, or pardon me, go to homebrewhappyhour.com/YouTube. You can find us at facebook.com/homebrewhappyhour, or just go to homebrewhappyhour.com. If you're listening by audio only, you're not missing a whole lot. I think that's safe to say.
I still can't believe people watch us on video. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Well, they probably only do it once.
Oh, come on. We know. On the internet, he's known as Handsome James. You don't have to be.
Yeah, I've never heard that. Yeah, I don't resemble that remark.
Well, and it's probably awkward for you because it's me who's really calling you that. So. Anyway, we do have some questions today. Before we get into that, I wanted to go over a little bit of things. One, the last two shows I've been forgetting to mention, but thankfully people follow us on social media, so they've cottoned on. People can call in their questions now, and starting, I don't know if next week, because we have a few interview shows coming up, but sooner than later, the questions we've been getting, I'm going to plug them in to this so that we can just push play and listen to our listeners submit their questions. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. 325-305-6107. I tried to get, it's a Google Voice number, and I tried to get one that spelled out like, I wanted 325 hot kegs. That's what I wanted. When I was a teenager, and this might be TMI, there happened to be an 800 number we would call and giggle at, and it was a 1-800 hot something. I'll just let y'all fill in the blank. And so in my mind, I was like, how funny would that be if I could get hot kegs? And I didn't. I don't know what 305-6107 spells. But I just wanted y'all to know I tried really hard. But yeah, so listeners, you can call in. We've also reinstated, thanks to Todd, who may be remembering this for the first time because it was like 3 weeks ago, If we take your question on air, whether you submit it audibly or write in at homebrewhappyhour.com at the submit a question link at the top of the page.
Could you repeat that for Mark Borski, please?
Yeah. We have a longtime listener who is so annoyed when I tell people, well, Mark, now you have a way to submit your question that's not just through the submit a question form at homebrewhappyhour.com.
No, we got to get him to submit one.
That's on homebrewhappyhour.com, Mark, if you're listening.
Oh, can you imagine? He's there calling, hey, Josh, I just had a suggestion. Maybe you could stop talking so much about the website. That was a good Borski.
Excellent.
Yeah. We are now, if we take your question on air, we are going to give you a gift certificate to kegconnection.com. We're bringing that back because we have been getting great questions and we want to reward that. And we want to encourage other people as well, if you may be shy. Incentives like that usually push you in the right direction. So submit your questions. When we take it, we will email you, or I will email you. Todd doesn't do anything. I will email you, thanking you and giving you a link to how you can claim your gift certificate. Also, let's see here. What do I have? Brewing weather is something I want to talk about. It is even better than the last time we talked. It's not the most warm, but the rain brought in like a cold front here in the Austin area, or cooler front, and me and my dad are actually brewing this weekend. I don't know what you guys are doing this weekend or Friday. Are you brewing on today when people are listening to this, James?
Yeah, we're going to be brewing a Czech dark lager.
Explain. If you have
it's just it's a Czech lager that's going to have some Munich malt and some Carafa 3 to give it a little darker color. But, I don't think I've ever had one, so I really can't tell you what it tastes like. But, in less than 5 weeks, we're all going to get to try one of those.
That's right.
I have had a Czech dark lager. I'd just like to take credit for that,
Then there we go. We can get Todd's take on what that exactly is, because I've read the descriptions, but it's still hard for me to wrap it around my head. Is it like a Schwartz beer? Is it similar to that?
Yeah, okay. It's Czech, it's dark, and it's a lager. Yeah.
Todd,
I've had one in the Czech Republic. It's not like it's a fairly mild beer. Like, it doesn't have a lot of hops or anything in it. So
go ahead, James.
The malt, the dark malt that's going to add it, the color it needs is going to be a debittered malt. So it's going to help with, a lot of times people will brew darker malts and they'll use like a chocolate malt or they'll use a black patent. And it gives it that burnt taste, so I'm trying to get away from that and give it a clean. We'll see. This is the first version. I'm sure I'll have to tweak it.
Well, and see, I was digging only because I was hoping that you were kind of getting us in the mood, getting us ready to do our trip coming up, because we are T-minus 4 weeks in some days until we're leaving on a jet plane. Going to Germany, going to the Brew. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Todd? The Brew.
The Brew.
The Brew. Yeah. And then we're going to spend, I don't know, because I haven't looked at the itinerary in a while, a couple of days, I think, in Prague.
Yay. I'm ready.
Why are you asking me how to pronounce it? You speak more German than I do.
It is true. Have you looked at our? Do you want me to bring that on the show? Hold on, let me open up Duel. No,
I haven't done it for several weeks. I've been having to work a lot. It's been really terrible.
Oh,
you mentioned earlier I don't do anything. I'm going to make you look at the balance sheet like I've been looking at all day.
I joke. My plate's so full too, Todd. I mean, I'm barely on a 42-day streak and killing you by thousands of points, but that is outside of this show. The next thing I wanted to talk about before we go into questions, what was that trip? We have at the Brew, where is going to be in Nuremberg, and then we're in Prague. I know Prague is known, or Czech Republic, they invented the Pilsner, I think. Nuremberg, is there a regional beer to that area? I've never asked you, James, because I know when we go to HQ in Germany for CMB, they've got the Alt, and then Cologne has the Kolsch. What can I expect from Nuremberg?
There's really not a regional beer in Nuremberg.
Yeah, Todd's right. It's a whole bunch of different styles. But one thing that I've found in Germany in the times that we've been, everybody has a Pils. Everybody has a Pils.
Yeah, they have a lot of Pils there. One of the beers I have been able to get there is like the smoked German beers.
Mhm.
I had that on tap there before. I mean, you can get bottles of almost anything there. It's a very metropolitan city, so you can get a lot of different things there. But it's you can always get like a Hefeweizen, or I've seen some smoked beers, but I don't know. And somebody's probably going to write in and correct us that we're absolutely wrong. But there is a regional beer in
I do
Nuremberg.
see a lot of Munich lagers, so I don't, in fact, a Polaner, I got a 6-pack of their Munich lager, and it was wonderful.
I guess what I was also getting to is I have become such a fanboy of fresh off the tap alt and Kolsch. Am I going to at least be able to get that, or was that?
No.
Oh
No,
not at all.
Oh man, so that'll.
They don't have that. They only have Kolsch and Cologne, Alt and Dusseldorf, that you can't get it anywhere else on tap. I mean, maybe a few miles out of those areas, but not there.
Well, let's just wrap up today's show. That's kind of a
okay. That's good for me. Thanks.
No. Okay, well, now let's go into questions now that I'm all bummed out. That's a great segue, Josh. The first question comes from Allison A. using the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. You're welcome, Borsty. Hey, guys, just wanted to thank you for the weekly content. You have directly contributed to me becoming a better brewer. I know you have discussed dry hopping in the past, but I have a question specifically for lagers. I'm brewing for the first time in New Zealand Pilsner, and I've just completed the 3-week fermentation phase at lager temps and a diacetyl rest. It is now on to the lager phase for 4 weeks at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. My plan is to dry hop right before kegging, but I'm worried about clarity. Do I dry hop for 3 to 5 days at end of lager time, remove the hops, and then let it sit for a week before kegging, or other ideas? Thanks again for your time. Sincerely, Allison. That's a great question, James.
That's a good question.
Well, that's kind of the new trend, guys. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of people trying to do what they've been doing with ales with lagers, and that's dry hopping. Now, me personally, I have not dry hopped a lager. I've dry hopped ales, but in doing a little bit of research on that question, there's several different ways. I can tell you how I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just from my brewing experience, I would do it in the diacetyl rest, because as we all know, a diacetyl rest is when you bring it up to room temp so that you can get some of the diacetyl, the yeast eat the diacetyl and take that taste, that flavor flaw out of the beer. That would be the ideal time, because you want to be over 60 degrees typically for dry hopping, 3 to 5 days, some people as long as 7 days. It's more effective in that temperature. So ideally, that's where I would do it. I would dry hop in the diacetyl phase of that. But being as she's already done that, and she's bringing it down into cold conditioning,
right?
Probably what I would do, in it's funny because everybody has their own ways, and people say you can't do it this way, and this guy says, "Oh no, I did it this way." But
Yeah.
Just generally, I think she's fine trying it that way. Because the fact that the water or the beer is cooler than normal, it's going to take a little longer for the hops to do what they're doing, and that's the essential oils that promote the aromatics and that kind of thing.
Todd, I want to give you, Todd, the benefit of the doubt that you also have something to contribute. What would you say, in your experience, joking aside, I'm being serious. You do have a lot of brewing experience in this, but I don't know your brewing experience with lagers.
I've never dry hopped a lager. I mean, okay. I don't. I mean, one of her parts of it was to pull the hops out. I think. I mean, I don't think there's. I would just be careful not to contaminate at that point. There's going to be alcohol in it, so you're fairly safe. But it would just make me a little nervous starting to dip things in there. I don't know. How would you take them out at that point, James?
Oh, okay. I didn't know who you were talking to.
Oh, let's be real here, James. We knew who he was talking to.
Well, Josh, how would you do it?
Well, what I would do is I'd call James like I do on many a brew day, and I'd say,
"Oh, okay. Well, let James answer that. Great."
Well, a lot of people will boil their bags if they're doing it that way. Some people don't even use bags; they'll just throw the hops right in. That's usually what I do when I dry hop. Is I throw it right onto the wort.
Oh, I thought that's what she did. I'm sorry. So she put it in a bag. Okay.
Yeah, if she puts it in a bag, just make sure the bag has been boiled so that it's sterile. And then the biggest thing that I read with a lot of people is when you're dry hopping, it is possible, depending on how much you dry hop, you can add oxygen to the wort.
I knew you were going to bring oxygen into this.
So, another option that you could do, and this absolutely wouldn't add any oxygen to the beers. You could do a hop tea, and you could do, a quart or less, boil the hops that you're using for, no more than 15 minutes. And then you can cool that tea down and add it to the fermenter. That way you get the oil extraction from the boil, and you get the flavor and the aromatics, but you don't get any of the vegetable matter.
You're going to kill everything by boiling it, so you'll be great. Yeah. That's a great idea.
That is a great idea. That is something too. I didn't say this at the beginning of the show, and the gear's behind me, but we actually got some new video gear in thanks to Todd and his charitable wallet book. We now are going to start doing a lot more short videos and how-tos for our social media. Hop tea that would be a great subject to cover in a 90-second video, right? I mean, James, that's pretty straightforward. And
yeah. You wouldn't, and the purist might say, well, I'm going to draw off some wort and boil the hops in the wort, but you're talking about a quart of water or less. So you're not going to contribute a lot to lowering the gravity, but I wouldn't mess with the wort. I would just use some good water, some RO water, spring water, and boil it.
What about, so her part two, I mean, and all of this had to do with her worry about clarity. Beyond the time period doing it during the diacetyl rest or whatever, what else can she do, or what else can brewers do that are worried about clarity? Like, I know there's a lot of other factors as well that can affect clarity.
Well, clarity can, if you do a lot of dry hopping, it can cause a hazy beer, hence the hazy IPA craze. The cool thing about if you're doing a lager is you obviously have temperature control, so you're cold crashing it, and it's amazing, and Todd can attest to this. We've got a Kolsch, believe it or not, in the Conical right now that's been cold crashing for Friday will be 2 weeks. And in just 1 week of cold crashing, there's dramatic difference in clarity. So
that's beautiful, super clear. It looks great.
That's just when it's cold, the proteins fall out and it gets clear real quick. It depends on the yeast. Some of the German yeasts are really they're powdery, is what I would call it. So they stay suspended a lot longer. They take a lot more time to clear out, but eventually they will all settle out. So sometimes you can, if you look at the yeast and the recommendation. They say 6 to 8 weeks cold conditioning or filtering to produce a bright beer, and that's just the yeast.
And you have been all about bright beers lately.
Yeah, because you know what? It never dawned on me, and we had brewed a beer for Todd's hunting buddies, and it wasn't the clearest beer. It tasted good, but Todd mentioned it only because these guys weren't brewers. And I think that personally, it doesn't bother me. But if you're wanting somebody to get excited in the hobby or possibly get in the hobby, you want something. Appearance is just as important as taste, I think. And he helped me understand that. And it makes a big difference when somebody comes in and they want to try our beer. If we produce something that's bright, clear, and tasty, it makes a heck of a better impression for homebrew than something cloudy that says, well, it tastes good, but it looks like crap.
That's why
it freaked them out, because it had a lot of suspended solids in it, and I think it just kind of freaked them out. They were drinking it going, oh, man, what's all that in there, So
yeah,
it's something that we don't necessarily always think about when we're drinking a beer, because as a home brewer, you get somewhat used to that at times. But and we've had beers that we've tried to clarify, and we just couldn't get them very clear. But they tasted fine too. So,
right. Yeah. I think everyone who homebrews has had that. And like you said, James, I think you nailed it. And I'm fairly active on the subreddit for homebrewing, Reddit /r/homebrewing and homebrew talk. And clarity is like, I see it as the new budding thing in regards to, like, we have seasons in any industry or any hobby, where right now we're in the season of the IPA, the hazy IPA. We've been in that season for a while, but I think clarity is making it, I think people are starting to appreciate that. And like clear lagers, like there's a subreddit called The Brewery, where clear lagers, like it's a real big topic where they just like to show it off because it is. Beer can be beautiful, and I don't want to sound like an alcoholic because I don't mean it that way. I just mean like,
no, it can absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
clarity adds to the presentation. And like some of the beers I've had from you, like specifically one of the Kolsch's you had recently was extremely clear. I don't know if that's what you were talking about for his brewing friends. Or I mean, it wouldn't be because you said that it wasn't clear, but it was either a Kolsch or your Vienna lager. I forget what I had recently where it was just, it was
the Kolsch, one of the Kolsch's on my kegerator that you drank was crystal clear.
It was beautiful.
And that is just the cold conditioning. And then a yeast has a lot to do with it. And you may not be aware of this, but I'm a big fan of imperial yeast.
What? You are?
Yeah, I am. Because of the fact that I use the Dieter for the Kolsch. And it's amazing. It's a highly flocculent yeast, which means it does its thing and then it clumps together and falls to the bottom. So it doesn't take a lot to produce. In fact, Todd brewed a batch of Kolsch, and we were moving it into secondary, wasn't it, Todd? And it was crystal clear.
Yeah, it's interesting because you brewed 2 batches in a row, and one of them was a lot clearer than the other one, and the only difference was the yeast you used.
That's correct. Yeah, we used another brand of yeast because we didn't have the Dieter. And it produced a great tasting beer, but it was amazing the difference in clarity between the two.
That is.
One thing I've noticed, because you're talking about seasons. Right now, the season is Oktoberfest, obviously.
Sure.
And a lot of the I've tried maybe 5 or 6 different Oktoberfest, purely from a scientific level to see.
You're all about research and development, R&D. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, I've been amazed. A lot of those are not very clear. There are some that are, but a lot of them are not very clear. So, I guess it's part of the style.
It must be because I had some. What was that? The Polaner Oktoberfest, and I had a spot, and I was able to find them at a liquor store the other day, and they were both the same way. They weren't bright.
Really?
Yeah,
interesting.
Maybe I've never actually. I hate to even admit this. I've never brewed an Oktoberfest. We should brew one next year. We got to put it on our list to do because I've enjoyed them. I've really enjoyed them.
Here, let me take you one. Let me one up you, Todd. You have the space there. Why don't we have at least internally, if not invite people as well? Why don't we brew a huge batch and have some kind of barbecue plate day or something, some kind of Oktoberfest.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So or we could talk the local German pub. To the beer garden, rather, the Stone Eagle. Maybe we could do something in conjunction with them for Oktoberfest. Yeah. That would be fun.
That would be
a great idea.
I'm selfishly coming up with ideas that I think would be a blast. But Allison, thank you so much for submitting the question. We have some time, so let's get to question number 2 from Joel, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Joel wrote in saying, regarding one of the latest episodes where all grain versus brew in a bag was discussed, I currently am using a brew bag on a 3-vessel Herm system. No extract, just grains. I consider this brew in a bag brewing, or perhaps Herm's brew in a bag. I wonder what you guys mean when you talk about brew in a bag. I see brew in a bag as just another filtration method for all grain brewing and feel as I've misunderstood the whole thing. Thanks for a great podcast. Again, James, let me just go ahead and toss this one. Just for initial thoughts.
Let me take this first because I want to see if my perception of this question is right, and then James, you can bitch slap me across the air if I'm wrong.
Never.
But I mean, it's kind of an interesting question to me because to me, and this could be totally wrong, but to me, if you brew in a bag, the reason you do that is you're doing it in one vessel. I mean, if you're doing it in a Herms with 3 vessels, that's not. I guess what he means by brew in the bag is he is using a bag for the grain. I guess he doesn't have a false bottom or anything. Is that? That's my perception of it.
It's funny that this question came up because I have talked about the little cooler setup when we had the big system. I would use the little cooler to test recipes because you certainly don't want to try a new recipe on a big system. Well, for the longest time, I didn't have a false bottom, so I just got really big grain bags, and that's what I used. that was before anybody was doing brew in a bag. This was in 2010, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And I used it because I could lift it out of the cooler and I could sparge over it and, pull it out. And, it was just a lot easier. So I think it's just anything that you're using, not using a false bottom, you're going to use a brew in the bag, I don't know. I don't have
but most people that do brew in a bag, they're only using one vessel, right?
That's correct. They're
Okay.
using a cooler normally, or I see a lot now.
They boil. I shouldn't say one vessel. They boil too, but yeah.
Sure. But to mash in, yeah.
So I guess maybe I'm confused too. What would you consider partial mash? Is that a similar concept of brew in a bag?
Oh, that's just steeping grains in.
Yeah, you're just steeping some grains in your. So a non-partial mash would just be pure extract. You don't use any grain at all. You only use liquid extract or dry extract.
Yeah, it'd just be just an extract only brew, and then you've got a mini mash, which is you're steeping grains in a little bag. And and then when you go into brew in the bag, a lot of people don't want to have to spend the time and expense of fabbing up something with a false bottom. It's just easier to throw the grain in a bag, and you can steep and mash that way. And you could technically do that with the 3-vessel system too. You just wouldn't have a false bottom where the grain's being mashed.
So then let me throw another one at you, since or Todd too, since you're the retailer here. When people like you have on homebrewsupply.com or on kegconnection.com, you have extract recipes, which some of them are partial mash, some of them are just purely extract, and you have all grain recipes. Would the brew in a bag brewer have to make his own pick list for his brew day, or are they found somewhere in the middle there? Are there on your sites? Are there any brew in a bag ready, or can they take the all grain stuff and make it brew in a bag? That's what I'm getting at. Is it synonymous? Or
so we have sold specific brew in a bag kits before. One of the LD Carlson made them. They still make them. We sold them for a while. We kind of backed off of that because we just felt like it wasn't needed. In other words, it contained a lot of things you would use specifically for brew in a bag, but really, once you've done that, you have those things, so you don't need to include them every time. And we just felt like you could just take pretty much a standard recipe and maybe tweak it a little bit for your brew in a bag, but it's pretty much the same as an all grain recipe.
Okay. Exactly. The only difference that some people might want to make is they may want to have their grains double crushed. They may want them crushed a little finer for brewing a bag, but to me, I agree with Todd. That's all grain brewing. That's all it is.
So then, because I like making everything about myself, as y'all know, what, James, would you? It would be a more affordable option. My dad and I, we have that 10-gallon spike kettle, wonderful piece of equipment. And I would still though need a cooler to do the brew in a bag, right? I'd still need.
Brew in a bag can. So it can all be done in the kettle.
Sure.
I guess people do it different ways, but you could do the entire process in the kettle and not even have a cooler.
Sure. You just hit the burner once you're done with the mash and the sparge, and then boil it from that same vessel.
So maybe that can be.
But you would just need to. The biggest problem would be holding temp for mashing. So, maybe somebody has a blanket, or maybe they throw. I don't know. The way I did it was I used a cooler to hold the rest, was what we would call it, the mashing part of that. But if you've got some way of creating and maintaining your temps for mashing, then you could technically, Todd's right, you could do it in one vessel.
Maybe that would be an interesting step for my pop and I in our journey of home brewing. And then also it might give me more street cred with our listeners if I can give honest responses to their questions about the different, hey, y'all have questions on partial mash, I'm your guy. Brew in a bag, never done it. And all grain, I've watched James do it. So if we maybe did that in between step, maybe that'd be a good solution for us, because it's not like I can't always step up to a three vessel system or something similar in the future.
Sure.
Or this is my segue out of this episode. NetSuite's episode is also a solution I've been considering. NetSuite, we're going to be discussing, we've had a lot of questions, and I've seen a lot of conversation online about people who live in spaces like the size of my office here or in apartments, and they want to all grain brew, but they don't want to have a mess. And there are a lot of solutions, and we've narrowed it down to 3, which we'll discuss next week: the Grain Fathered, Robo Brew, and the Mash and Boil. I'm terribly excited because James is doing his homework, and we're going to have a great conversation next week comparing those 3 devices.
I'm excited about it too. I think it's going to be really good. I don't know. I sent you an email earlier about one of our customers that was really excited about buying one of those systems. I thought, and he's going to brew this weekend, and it's one that we haven't brewed on. I think it might be neat to bring him on for just for 2 or 3, 4 minutes and have him tell us what the experience was like.
Oh, that's a great idea. I didn't see your emails, but to be fair, I was napping before we started recording, and you
have to get your rest before you record. I understand.
Yeah, and then I have my clan online has some video game stuff. We got to level up after this, so I'll see if I can get to your email later. We'll see.
Okay, no hurry on that.
Okay, I appreciate it. But James,
I think it's going to be cool because I think people are going to get to see visually the differences. And then we can know, we've been brewing with the Grain Father for 3 years now, and it's a great machine, but it may be out of some people's price range.
Exactly. That's why I love having you on the show, because you're thorough. Like me and Todd would be like, here's what I choose. Why? Because. And we're going to have, I'm very much looking forward to the discussion next week. Guys, that's about wrap-up time. Joel, thank you so much for submitting the question. Todd, James, thank you so much for your time and doing the show today with me.
Thank you.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call them in by dialing 325-305-6107 and leave your message after the beep. Thank you to our show sponsor, KetConnection.com, for supporting our podcast and the homebrewing community. Go to KetConnection.com, use the promo code HHH, and you'll receive 5% off your order. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.